welcome back to the shop. Today is the day that the dash is going in, and I want to say thank you to Ford for making my life difficult. This is what I get for not investing in a GM steering column. All of this would have been handled by the wiring in the steering column. With the Ford, where did my switch go? If you want to reuse the factory four-way switch, you don't have enough leads on it, which I knew. And I have some diodes to put in. But what you want to do is break into your very expensive wiring harness. And you have to keep each circuit separate. Otherwise, when you hit the turn signal, all the lights will flash. So, and I also learned this little indicator bulb is not enough to pull down the mechanical timers. Spent 2 hours of my life figuring that out. So what we're going to do here in a minute, once I get this wire cleaned up, is put in some diodes, which you can get anywhere. 30 amp rated is what they look like. Get it out of the flashlight. And basically, as long as you put the gray ring to the side of they're one-way streets. So when I tie all these wires together at the switch, the diodes will prevent the normal steering turn signal circuits from back. All right, let's try that explanation again of how this four-way circuit actually works in this truck now, with 20% more competence and 100% less serious migraine headache. All right, so I don't know how it was originally. I could not find a wiring diagram that showed how the four-way flasher was tied in. And I'll pull the page down here to show more of the drawing and why that's confusing to me. It obviously worked. I just don't know what sorcery Ford engineers were doing 60 years ago. But I'll show you how I got it to work and what would have made it a little easier. The big problem is I did not use a GM column in this truck, and this wiring harness, which the part number is actually right here on the box from American Auto Wire, is meant to be used with a GM column. And so all of the problems that I'm having here would have been handled by the circuitry of the column. I just would have plugged the wires in and everything would have worked. So what we have, hopefully you can see it, is we got a battery, we have a turn signal flasher, and we have a four-way flasher. And we have a brake switch. Okay. So normally when you step on the brake pedal, the switch closes and you get taillights. We also have the left-right turn signal and the four-way. So what confuses me here is that originally there was a 4-pole switch for the four-way. And I would have thought either it would have been a monopole switch that would have been closing a path to ground, or it would have been a 6-pole switch. The reason it needs to be 6 is that you have the feed from the flasher, you have, come on camera, stay on. You have the dash indicating bulb, and then you should have 4 more circuits for the different turn indicators on the vehicle, left, front, rear, etc. And it only has two wires. And the reason I'm confused by this is that you end up tying circuits together through the switch. So my guess is there were some relays maybe, or I don't know. But what will happen is if you put all 4 circuits, or front together and rear together, at the switch, it'll work for the four-way. When you pull the four-way out, all the lights will come on, but you'll slave turn signals together. So if you put both fronts on this pole, for example, when you put the turn signal in left or right, both front blinkers will come on because they actually create a secondary path in the circuit here that puts them together. So part of the sorcery is actually handled by your steering column turn signal switch. So in the normal center position, your brake switch is connected to both the rear tail lights together. When you push or pull the switch for left or right, you isolate a brake circuit and you engage a turn circuit. So I'll get the whole diagram in view here now. So if you put on your left turn signal, for example, when you pull the switch, you'll close the contact to the turn signal flasher, the left front bulb, and the left rear bulb. So where you run into trouble then, like I said, is if you have everything tied together at the four-way switch. So what I had to do was come off the four-way switch and into a diode. Now diodes are current directional. They only let the current go one way. That's what I was trying to say in the other video and kept getting tongue-tied on. So by putting those diodes in, and I put 4 in, one for each of the light circuits, when the four-way switch is not engaged, it functions as though the four-way switch wasn't present. Individual turn signals, taillights for braking. When the four-way switch is engaged, it allows the current to flow through these diodes, and it doesn't matter what position the turn signal switch is in, all the lights are going to flash. Now, because the diodes are here, if you step on the taillights, I don't think it will override the four-way flasher. Oh no, it will, I'm sorry. It'll override the four-way flasher, and your taillights will just stay on, because you're going to have current flowing from both sides intermittently. So, I don't know, like I said, how it's supposed to be done, but this is how I fixed it, so it works. And these diodes are cheap. I mean, you know, they were like 10 bucks for a pack of 20 or something, and these are 30 amp rated diodes. They're solid state, they're basically indestructible. But I don't think they existed in 1966, so I would love to see a wiring diagram that shows how to make a 4-pole four-way switch actually work. And like I said, if you're doing a GM column swap, it's plug and play, because all of this circuitry without the diodes, there's a very complicated multi-position turn signal switch that allows everything to work, which I don't have. So that's why we're in this boat. Anyway, I hope that helps. If anybody's putting a wiring harness in a truck like this and you want to keep the factory column because you're keeping the 3-speed on the tree, or you just don't want to deal with the hassle of a GM column swap, this gets you up and going. And like I said, these diodes are pretty cheap. And if you're wanting to do this, the gray is the output side. So like if we look at the side of the diode, I'll try to draw it live here. It's mostly black, and then there's a little gray band here. That's going to be your output side. The current's going to flow in this direction. So, thanks for watching, and back to today's action. Okay, so we're ready to put the dash in. Now the nice thing about that wiring kit is it came with wires. They're all pre-labeled. Maybe you can see that. I can read them. They're pretty easy to read. So basically I just have to stand here and connect the wiring harness leads to the pigtail, which is just a, I don't know, 20-pin Molex for the dash, and then when I'm done, this plugs into the dash. So it's all just stand here and match up colors to colors. I got the instructions for both kits here in case I get confused about what's what. The instrument kit came with an electronic vehicle speed sensor that goes in the place of the factory mechanical speed sensor on your transmission output shaft. So if you're running a C6 or like a T18, T19, or a Ford 303, you can make them work. And the nice thing about this is you don't have to worry about tire size and rear axle ratio. I've not done it yet, but the book says I can push a button, this guy, at 30 miles an hour, and the speedometer will automatically calibrate itself. So if you ever change wheels, if I ever change wheels and tires, don't have to worry about that. I'm actually pretty excited about that because my original plan was to run a GPS speedometer sending unit, and those are good enough for some people. I live in an area where sometimes we get out of cell service. I don't know how spotty the GPS service is. So you wouldn't think I'd be that far off the beaten path out here, but there's definitely areas where we don't even have cell service. So I didn't know how that was going to cooperate, so I was pretty happy to be able to reuse the factory speed, factory sending unit location. If I had upgraded to a newer style Ford rear axle that has the vehicle speed sensor reluctor type one built in, they also have a way to accommodate that. So it's a pretty good kit, pretty flexible. I don't know if I've talked about the wiring harness that I bought for this truck, but I've also been happy with that. Everything seems to be pretty plug and play. The dash instrument kit is a Classic Instruments. It's spendy, but I have it sitting in the panel over there, and I'm not going to do a reveal just yet, but I'm really happy with the way it looks, and it's going to give me that nice kind of factory look, but with modern digital gauges. And I've probably just triggered somebody by saying I prefer digital gauges over mechanical, but the fact of the matter is, in this day and age, the mechanical gauges just aren't as reliably made as they used to be. And I think that's an important point. It's not so much, I think, that the digital gauges have improved in the last 20 years. It's more that the mechanical gauges have gotten significantly worse in quality control, in my experience. And the digital has maintained the same quality control, but become more affordable. So I'm going to go digital gauges in this. If I end up hating it, you know, it's not like I can't put mechanical sending units back in it. But anyway, that's my sort of mini rant on that. And I'll bring you back here in a little bit once I got all these wires connected, because this is going to be fun. Well, it took about an hour. They're all connected here. I would strongly recommend using these uninsulated style connectors. There's a lot of different size wire coming together here, a lot of circuits. You don't want to build up a ton of bulk from the connectors, and then just heat shrink them. So yeah, had a cup of coffee and some good radio tunes, and just take your time. I probably still made a mistake, but hopefully it's only one. So now I need to get this bundled up, loomed up, stuff back in the dash, and go get the insert panel. And I think it's actually done. I went ahead and reconnected the indicator light for the four-way. Here's the four-way switch all finished, if I forgot to show it in the last video. And I did heat shrink over the diodes, so they're all locked in nice and tight. They can't go anywhere. And that'll have to get worked back in the dash. But that's going to be needing several arms, 3 or 4 probably, 30 odd fingers, and probably 3 feet. So I don't know if I'm going to film it or not, but I at least got to clean out all the stuff from the cab, find the screws, and start getting ready to put it back together here. And just like that, the dash is installed. So we'll just run through the functions here. Four-way lights work. Turn signal indicators work. It'll be a little noisy because the fuel pump's going to run. Key on. Get a nice little gauge sweep. Indicator lights telling you everything's working. Showing something resembling gas in the tank. It should be fuller than that, but we may end up having to change out the sending unit. But anyway, left turn signal. Right turn signal. I got voltage. Let's see if the tach bounces. Alright, lunch break and a battery charge later. Let's see if it'll start now. Oh yeah, oil pressure for days.
dusty.
There's 30. Oh, heck. 10% low. That's all the money. Nothing needed. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that little test drive. Biggest issue right now, besides I need to get the headliner in it, is when you go on motoring and come off positive power, the oil pressure is going down to like 15, 20 pounds at idle, which is a little low, I think. I have to see if that's fixable easily. As soon as you get on the power and get up to like 1500 RPM, it's, you know, pegs the oil pressure gauge to 60 pounds. So I don't know, it might just be nature of these gauges. But I mean, it doesn't, there's no valve collider. There's no, I got out of it while it was sitting there idling. There's no indication that it's running, you know, dangerously low on oil pressure. So I think it's artificial. I'm going to try putting another half quart of oil in it. It could just be that once, because it was, you know, you saw when I started it up cold, it was like 60 pounds of oil pressure. It could just be that when it's a little low in the pan, it's not picking up quite right. But then as soon as you get a little bit of speed behind the pump, it just slurps it up. So oil pressure is good in cornering. Did a couple little hits out there in the road to test out the kick down. I wanted to program the speedo. It's about 10% low, which is actually not horrible, but the battery is not strong enough to hot start the truck. It seems like it was really struggling and it kept kicking it out of program mode. So I'm just going to leave it alone for now. I got a, you know, GPS in my pocket, so it's some indication of speed, and everything else seems to be working fine. So I'm pretty excited. So the next step here before I run out of time today, we'll start cleaning up the hubcaps, and looks like I'm gonna have to do a little paint and a little body work. So that'll probably be where I leave this video, but it runs and drives and I'm pretty excited. It sounds great. So looking forward to driving it this year.